All right, guys, I want to talk to you guys in this section about Brexit and will Brexit be delayed? Because the reason I'm mentioning this because my good friend Zak, let me just go and show you. Here it is. This is my good friend Zak, who I've talked to before on Core Finance and on Tip TV. He's of course been a trader for trading analyst for nearly 30 years, going back to the 1980s. Now, I want to talk to Zak here because he said to me while we were having coffee last week. Maybe he was joking, maybe he wasn't. He said that the reason why we're seeing the surge in the British pound is that perhaps Brexit is going to be delayed, or maybe Brexit won't even happen. Now, Zak, were you joking about Brexit not happening, or were you being tongue-in-cheek, I guess, or were you just saying it's going to get delayed? What were you trying to say?
I'll be quite clear. There will effectively be no Brexit.
You're actually serious.
It will not happen, and if it happens, it will be. And as you said, I'm not political.
Right.
It would be in name only. The government, Her Majesty's government, do not want to leave the EU, and they are doing everything they can to delay it. Right. And a little trick for you to do, whatever Theresa May says.
Right.
Just take her words as the opposite of whatever she says. So when she says Brexit means Brexit, it means Brexit doesn't mean Brexit. And she's been totally, she's got a problem with saying what she means. She just says the opposite of that. So she's delaying it. She's even, so there we are. So if you read the headlines even today, you'll see that it's just, and also I think she feels that if Brexit ever happened, she'd be out of a job. So she's trying to stay in her job as long as possible. So
that's really interesting. By the way, yeah, sorry to interrupt. I mean, I wasn't laughing at you, Zak. I was just very amused because not only do I mean, I understand your point. I totally understand what you're saying. But the reason I was laughing is because it's such a shocking and extraordinary situation. If that actually turns out to be correct, there are some of our members tonight that are actually agreeing with you. I mean, what about the population? What about the? I mean, how do you think that's going to play if Brexit doesn't actually happen in principle? How do you think that's going to play to the 51% of people here in the UK who voted for Brexit? Now, obviously, none of us are political here, but how do you think that's going to play to them? I mean, it's going to be very frustrating, I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's not something that there's not going to be. We're not looking at. It's not 1861. There's not going to be anything like that. But I think the analogy is it's no easier for the UK to leave the EU than it would be for California to leave the United States. We're looking at that kind of thing. I mean, Britain joined the EU in 72 or 75. I mean, in the 70s, but it was just it was an economic union, trade. It was a trade zone. But in fact, since 92, it's been the European Union started in 1992. If you look back to the history books, and since then we've been part of the United States of Europe, and that's it. You can't get out of United States of Europe or America. So that's, I think, the way of looking at it. It's and a lot of people like it. A lot of people like being in part of a greater European, super state. I mean, it's just people like it. I mean, there's a lot of people, the establishment like it. A lot of people around the country do, and most of the business people, vested interests, like being in Europe.
So you're actually, it's interesting because your take. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with your view, by the way. I'm going to remain neutral, although I respect your opinion. Don't get me wrong.
No, I'm not saying I'm a Brexiteer. I'm just saying my analysis of the situation. That the United Kingdom cannot leave the European Union because it's a lobster pot. It's signed up to it, and once you sign, just like any American state, cannot leave the union, can it?
Yeah.
Idaho can't just like phone up Donald Trump and say we're leaving, can it?
Right.
It just can't happen. So that is how it's all set up like that. And it's worked very well in many ways, business and things like that.
I have to say, your view that Brexit may not even happen is certainly an extreme view. But if it turns out to be true, that is certainly shocking because I never even considered it. I never even for once considered that. I literally, until you mentioned it, I literally thought that Brexit definitely is going to go ahead as they plan to do by March of this year. I mean, I have seen it. They keep delaying it. They keep postponing it. And I guess what you're saying is that in principle, what they might do is just not. It may not even go through, right? I mean, that's.
No, that's it. It just won't go through. It won't happen.
I mean, it would be a defeat for democracy, right? I mean, how would democracy, or because we had this referendum, right? Don't get me wrong, guys. I understand the referendum has a lot of people divided on this point.
The referendum was actually referendum was actually advisory. It wasn't compulsory.
Right.
It was like let's just see what everybody thinks, and and it was like that. It wasn't actually technically, it wasn't in stone. It was up to Parliament to then vote and vote on it and do whatever it wanted. But it's a little bit like it's like an opinion poll. It was an opinion poll. It wasn't actually like I
don't know though.
An election
I can imagine people on the Leave side hearing this right now, and they'll be very angry by that. They probably disagree with you, Zach, on that point. They'd say, no, we had this referendum. We had that vote. Let's get it over and done with. People made the decision. What do you say? What do you say to that?
It was the government never thought that its bluff would be called.
Ah, right. Okay.
It was like Henry Ford. You can have any color as long as it's black.
Okay.
It was that kind of, and it was never expected. And it was it was never expected that it was going to happen. It was it was a surprise. It was a shock. So
I know. Yeah.
It's a bit like having a vote where. It's like having a vote and asking people whether they want to have a pay rise, and actually finding out that people don't actually want a pay rise. It was as crazy as that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I understand your point. Very interesting point as well. And let me just say, guys, that we've got a lot more. We've covered so much more in the members webinar on the 2019 predictions, the long-term forecast. So make sure. If you're a member, then go ahead and watch the recording. If you're not a member, become a member today, and make sure you watch the full recording of the my interview with Zak here on the 2019 predictions and long-term forecast. Just to mention this chart of the British pound, very interesting, because the pulse that fired off here pushed the British pound higher, as you can see, and it seems to be holding. It seems to be holding the support level around about the 55 moving average. So very interesting to see how the pound will handle that going forward. And again, very interesting to hear Zak's opinion on this. All right, guys, thank you so much indeed. And again, as I mentioned before, Zak, you can follow Zak on Twitter at Zak's Traders Cafe. Make sure you follow Zak on that. At Zak's Traders Cafe, and Zak will be posting his own crypto and Bitcoin report for members every 2 weeks, and that's available for you guys as well.